The mystery of the man embroiled in a billion-dollar gold scam a mining company's claim that it had discovered. A huge deposit of gold deep in the Indonesian jungle led to a scramble to invest in the firm. But all that glittered was not gold, and questions remain about the mysterious death of the company's chief geologist. Warning, this video contains spoilers. It also has references to suicide and graphic content that some readers may find upsetting.
On the morning of March 19, 1997, Michael de Guzman, chief geologist at Canadian mining company Bre-X Minerals, boarded a helicopter flight to travel to a remote jungle site in Indonesia. It was a journey he had made many times before, to a place where he had reported finding huge deposits of gold. But this time, de Guzman never arrived. 20 minutes into the journey, a rear door on the left-hand side of the helicopter opened and de Guzman had gone, plummeting to his death into the dense foliage below. The CEO of the mining company announced de Guzman had taken his own life, having been diagnosed with hepatitis B and exhausted from fighting recurring malaria, digging deeper into what happened before the fateful helicopter trip. De Guzman was born in the Philippines on Valentine's Day, 1956. An apt birthday, as he was often in love. He had 3, possibly 4, wives all at the same time across different countries. A man who enjoyed karaoke, beer, visiting strip clubs and wearing gold, de Guzman was an experienced geologist who believed he could make his fortune in Indonesia. In the 1990s, the country was seen as a land of opportunity for gold prospectors with its rich natural mineral sources. One Dutchman, John Felderhoff, known to many as the Indiana Jones of geologists, believed a remote site in Buzang, in the province of East Kalimantan on the island of Borneo, was a gold mine waiting to be exploited. But he needed cash to move forward. In April 1993, Felderhoff struck a deal with David Walsh, Bre-X Minerals CEO. Walsh was to sell the dream to potential investors of a site laden with buried treasure. Felderhoff controlled operations on the ground and made it clear he wanted a project partner to help with the search, fellow geologist and friend de Guzman. But Felderhoff, de Guzman, and their team only had until December 18, 1993 to drill test holes to see if the gold was really there. That was when the exploration license granted to them by the Indonesian government expired. With only a couple of days to go before the final deadline, and 2 holes dug, there was still no sign of gold. Then, de Guzman suddenly told Walsh he knew the precise spot they needed to drill. The location had come to him in a dream. The team drilled a 3rd hole exactly where de Guzman had pinpointed, and struck gold. A further 4th hole brought with it the prospect of an even greater find. The $6 billion gold scam. It was the biggest gold mine fraud of all time, a scam that devastated countless lives. But what really happened? For the next 3 years, work at the site continued. As estimates of the amount of gold that was there grew, so did the number of investors. The price of shares in Bre-X Minerals began to soar, from 20 cents to 280 Canadian dollars, 206 US dollars, 163 pounds. The company was eventually valued at 6 billion Canadian dollars, 4.4 billion US dollars, 3.5 billion pounds. Many people in Canadian small towns joined the gold rush, investing hundreds of thousands of dollars of their savings. In early 1997, Indonesia's then president, Suharto, ruled that a small company such as Bre-X Minerals could no longer solely own the site and reap its rewards. It had to be shared with the Indonesian government and assisted by a larger, more experienced mining firm. So, a deal was struck with U.S. company, Freeport-McMoRan. Before agreeing to take on all the financial risks associated with precious metals mining, Freeport-McMoRan needed to do its own checks. Its geologists were sent to drill twin holes in the Buzang deposit. Twinning is a way of double-checking gold is present by drilling next to the place it has been found and taking rock samples. This was standard practice in mining, but had not been done so far by Bre-X Minerals. The twinning samples were sent off to 2 different labs, but the results came back the same. No traces of gold could be found. What could this mean for the people who had invested their savings? Walsh and Felderhoff were informed of the new data by Freeport-McMoRan. They instructed de Guzman, who was at a convention in Toronto, to return to Buzang to meet the Freeport-McMoRan team to explain. De Guzman traveled from Canada via Singapore, where he spent time with his wife Jeannie, with whom he had a son and daughter. De Guzman spent his last evening in the city of Balikpapan, more than 100 miles, 161 kilometers south of the Buzang mine, with Bre-X Minerals employee Rudy Vega. Vega was part of the company's Filipino exploration team and had been due to travel with de Guzman to face Freeport-McMoRan. According to an account Vega would later give to Indonesian police, the two of them went to a karaoke bar. After returning to his hotel room, de Guzman attempted to take his own life, Vega said. The next morning, de Guzman and Vega traveled by helicopter to Samarinda, another city closer to Buzang. De Guzman then reboarded the helicopter to travel to the mine, but Vega did not join him. Two men were with de Guzman on the flight, a maintenance technician and a pilot. But the pilot was an Indonesian Air Force pilot, not the usual one who made the trip to the Buzang mine. The stop-off in Samarinda was also odd. Usually de Guzman would fly straight from Balikpapan to Buzang. After having given an initial statement at the time, the pilot has rarely spoken about the trip. He has denied any involvement in what happened to de Guzman and has maintained he did not see what happened. By 10:30 local time on March 19, 1997, de Guzman was dead. Handwritten suicide notes were found in the helicopter and, 4 days later, a body was recovered in the vast jungle. 6 weeks after de Guzman's death, the Buzang gold dream was over for everyone, leaving investors in despair. Bre-X Minerals' $6 billion Canadian dollar valuation had been reduced to nothing. An independent report would confirm there was no gold at all at the Buzang site. Rock samples dating from 1995 to 1997 were analyzed and found to have been tampered with through a process called salting. Fragments of gold from another source had been sprinkled among rock samples via a salt shaker to falsify results. Almost 30 years later, no one has ever been held accountable for the scam. Walsh maintained he knew nothing about it and died of a stroke in 1998. In 2007, a Canadian judge ruled that Felderhof had been unaware of the swindle and found him not guilty of insider trading. The Dutch geologist died in 2019. That brings us back to de Guzman. Had he taken his own life to avoid having to reveal that he had been the mastermind of the deceit? His suicide notes raise concerns. Cousin, once removed, of Felderhof, Suzanne Felderhof, says he had expressed doubt over whether de Guzman could ever have written them. The notes mention physical ailments which, she says, her relative had never heard him complain about. As another suicide note was written to a Bre-X Minerals finance manager who de Guzman didn't actually. In it, one of de Guzman's wives' names had been spelt incorrectly. Dr. Benito Molino was a member of the Filipino investigative team hired by de Guzman's family to examine the evidence once the autopsy reports had been released. In the photographs of the body found in the jungle, Molino says he saw bruises on the neck and concluded de Guzman had died by strangulation. When he was dead, he must have been thrown out of the chopper in the jungle to make it appear he committed suicide, Molino tells the podcast. In big crimes, there will always be a fall guy, so we don't believe that the real mastermind will be identified. Or was the body even that of de Guzman? Based on initial descriptions, it would appear the individual had been dead for longer than 4 days, the time it took for the body to be discovered, says forensic anthropologist Dr. Richard Taduran, who worked with Molino. De Guzman's wife Jeannie also says the teeth were intact on the body that was found, and yet her husband had false teeth. De Guzman's dental records have never been released by his family. Geologist Mansour Geiger, a friend of Jeannie de Guzman, says she had told him her husband was still alive and had escaped to South America. Geiger believes he is now living in the Cayman Islands. Could de Guzman have arranged to pick up a body to take on the final flight to fake his own death? Did he even get on the helicopter at all? The son he shared with Jeannie believes his father could still be alive. Having been told this by his mother, he is a geologist, like his father, and is determined to continue his father's legacy, but this time in the right way. Maybe I could start my own mines, says Michael de Guzman Jr., get some investors and be the better Mike de Guzman.
The most believed scenario of de Guzman was the key figure who claimed to have discovered a massive gold deposit at the Busang site in Indonesia in the early 1990s. However, it was later revealed that the gold samples he provided were fraudulently unsalted with gold dust to inflate the value of the find artificially. This deception led to a multi-billion-dollar scam, as there was no real gold deposit at Busang. De Guzman was trusted by Bre-X's CEO David Walsh to oversee the site and control testing processes, which allowed him to manipulate core samples without immediate suspicion, to maintain the illusion He even paid local Indonesians to pan for gold to support the fraudulent claims. In 1997, as the fraud was unraveling and investigations were closing in, Michael de Guzman died under mysterious circumstances. He reportedly jumped from a helicopter over the Borneo jungle, an act widely considered a suicide. His death occurred just before the scandal fully broke, and it effectively ended his involvement, leaving many questions unanswered. Despite rumors and conspiracy theories suggesting he might still be alive, credible reports confirm his death was ruled a suicide based on forensic identification.